Hello therapy providers. This video has been tailored specifically for you. We would like to help you streamline your prior authorization requests. So we'll give you some tips and advice for submitting your requests and making sure they are processed quickly. First things first, thank you. Texas Medicaid clients rely on therapy providers like you, and we're glad that you're here to help communities all over Texas. Now, let's get started by reviewing TMHP's therapy policy and where to find it. Let's visit our website, tmhp.com. Select Programs, Texas Medicaid, Provider Manual, Texas Medicaid Provider Procedures Manual, and then click the link. Physical Therapy, Occupational Therapy, and Speech Therapy Services Handbook. Let's start with Children's Therapy Services Clients, birth through 20 years of age, Section 5 of Policy. We will review the required items for a complete initial therapy request. A note for adult therapy providers. We will review adult therapy requests in a few minutes, but you'll want to follow along as we review children's therapy requests because many of the same requirements will apply. For children, you may make either an acute therapy request for up to 60 days. Policy Section 5.1.1 defines an acute request or a chronic therapy request for up to 180 days. Policy Section 5.1.2 defines a chronic therapy request. To start, you will need a complete and correct Texas Medicaid physical, occupational, or speech therapy prior authorization form. These can be found on our website, along with additional instructions on how to fill out this form. To view a PDF of the form, click the link Texas Medicaid Physical, Occupational, or Speech Therapy, or PT, OT, ST, Prior Authorization Form. Most importantly, fields with an asterisk must be filled out with the correct information. If you are unsure how to fill out these essential fields correctly, you may contact our Provider Enrollment Department at 800-925-9126, option 3, to help facilitate or correct your provider information. Additionally, the therapist must sign and date the prior authorization form. The most missed item on the prior authorization form is the total number of units or encounters requested. Timed procedure codes, for example 97110 and 97530, among many others, must be requested in total number of units. TMHP considers each treatment visit equal to 4 units of therapy. Untimed procedure codes, for example 92507 and 97014, among others, must be requested in total number of encounters. TMHP considers each treatment visit equal to 1 encounter. A simple Google search can help you figure out if the codes you are requesting are timed or untimed. If you are requesting both timed and untimed procedure codes, please include the total number of units and encounters requested. Another common error made by providers are incorrect alterations. A handwritten alteration must be made with a single line strike-through, initialed and dated. An electronic alteration must be made with a single line strike-through, initialed, dated, and include a timestamp or the logo of the software used to make the correction. Congrats! Your request form is complete. The items we review next will need to be received before we can approve your request. Next, you will need documentation that a Texas Health Steps checkup has been performed within the last 60 days. This only applies to children's therapy requests. Here are the 3 most common ways to meet this requirement. You only need to provide one. 1. Have the requesting provider. This may also be a nurse practitioner or physician assistant. Sign the prior authorization form. Our form includes a statement that the TH steps is current. 2. Submit a copy of the client's well-child check visit, signed and dated by the requesting provider. And 3. Provide a statement that TH steps is current, signed, and dated by the requesting provider. Now it's time to make sure your evaluation contains all the necessary items. First off, you will need to submit a current evaluation. An evaluation is considered current when it is performed within 60 days prior to your requested from date on the prior authorization form. If your request is pended by one of our clinicians for a current therapy evaluation, you may choose to either A. Alter your requested from date on the prior authorization form to within 60 days of the evaluation you submitted, or B. Conduct a current therapy evaluation. For the next item, the evaluation, let's go back to policy. If you are following along, Policy Section 5.2.1.1 has a comprehensive list of the items that must be included in the evaluation or plan of care. We will review each item. Some are self-explanatory items, others require a bit more explanation. 1. Client's medical history and background. For chronic therapy requests, this must include the client's developmental and birth history. For acute therapy requests, this must include the mechanism of injury or history of onset of the acute condition or acute exacerbation of a chronic condition. 2. All medical diagnoses related to the client's condition. 3. Date of onset of the client's condition, requiring therapy or exacerbation date as applicable. 4. Date of evaluation. 5. Time in and time out. And 6. Baseline objective measurements based on standardized testing performed or other standard assessment tools. For chronic therapy requests, the therapist must conduct norm reference standardized testing. They also must report the raw scores, along with scores reflecting standard deviation from the mean. For example, percentile rank, standard scores, Z-scores, or T-scores. If your client is unable to complete standardized testing, please provide a note in the evaluation explaining why testing could not be completed. For more developmental delay criteria, please see Section 5.3 of the Provider Manual. For acute therapy requests, the therapist must conduct standardized testing such as, but not limited to, the following: manual muscle testing, range of motion measurements, lower extremity functional scale, upper extremity functional index, Berg balance test, timed up and go, handheld dynamometer, 6-minute walk test, etc. 7. Safety risks. 8. Client-specific, measurable short and long-term functional goals within the length of time the service is requested. Let's talk about goal timeframes, because goals must be achievable within the length of time the service is requested. Goal timeframes may not exceed the dates of service requested. Additionally, we cannot accept a number of visits or by discharge as a goal timeframe. Acceptable goal timeframe notation can be made in the form of a date, a number of weeks or months, or by the end of the authorization period. 9. Interpretation of the results of the evaluation, including recommendations for therapy amount, frequency per week, and duration of services. TMHP can accept frequencies of 1, 2, or 3 times per week or per month. 10. Therapy treatment plan, or POC, to include specific modalities and treatments planned. The therapist may include the procedure codes they intend to bill for or a list of the treatment modalities planned. 11. Documentation of client's primary language. This must be included even for infants and clients who are nonverbal. 12. Documentation of client's age and date of birth. 13. Adaptive equipment or assistive devices as applicable. If the client does not require any adaptive equipment, that must be stated in the evaluation. 14. Prognosis for improvement. 15. Requested dates of service for planned treatments after the completion of the evaluation. The dates of service on the prior authorization form cannot begin before or extend beyond the dates of service listed in the evaluation. Think of it this way: the person filling out the prior authorization form cannot alter the recommendations of the therapist, so you cannot request a longer duration or higher frequency than your therapist has recommended. 16. Responsible adults' expected involvement in client's treatment. 17. History of prior therapy and referrals as applicable. If the client does not have a history of prior therapy, that must be documented as well. And 18. Signature and date of the treating therapist. Handwritten signatures or dates are always acceptable. Electronic signatures must include a system-generated date and timestamp or the logo of the software used, and this applies to MD signatures as well. Please be aware that we have additional requirements for speech therapy. Please see Policy Section 5.2.2 for a list of these additional requirements. But wait, there's one more thing you will need to obtain for a complete request: a verbal or written order from the requesting provider, formerly known as the prescribing provider. If you're following along, this can be found in Policy Section 5.2.3. An order must meet the two following requirements. 1. It must be signed and dated by the requesting provider within 60 days prior to your requested from date on the prior authorization form. If signed after that date, the dates of service prior to the requesting provider's signature date will be denied. And 2. The frequency and duration of therapy services approved by the doctor. Remember, you may not request a frequency or duration on the prior authorization form that exceeds the frequency or duration on the requesting provider's order. Here are the 3 most common ways to meet this requirement. You need only provide 1. 1. The requesting provider may sign the prior authorization form. 2. The requesting provider may sign the evaluation or plan of care. And 3. The requesting provider may sign a separate order for therapy. Moving on to adult therapy requests. Requirements for adult services can be found in Therapy Policy, Section 6. Only acute therapy requests can be made for adult clients for a duration up to 60 days per authorization period. An acute medical condition is defined as occurring within the past 90 days. This applies to an acute exacerbation of a chronic condition. Be sure your therapist documents if an acute exacerbation has occurred. Examples of this could be a fall, a marked worsening of symptoms, or a recent procedure. Adult therapy requests have several of the same requirements as therapy requests for children. You must provide 1. A complete and correct prior authorization form. 2. A current order for therapy services signed and dated by the requesting provider. As you might recall from children's therapy, the order must also contain the requesting provider's approved frequency and duration of services. The order must be signed within 60 days prior to your requested start of care date. Otherwise, the dates of service prior to the requesting provider's signature date will be denied. And 3. A current evaluation. Adult therapy evaluations requirements can be found in Policy Section 6.2.1.1 and have the same required items as children's therapy evaluations, with one exception. For an adult therapy request, the requirement for responsible adults' expected involvement in the client's treatment can be met by describing the expectation of adherence with a home program. A good example of this would be to include a goal that the client will be independent with HEP, if applicable. At this point, you might be wondering, what about re-evaluations? We call them requests for recertification. Let's start with children's therapy requests for recertification acute therapy services. You can locate this information in Therapy Policy Section 5.2.4 for a comprehensive list of acute re-evaluation requirements. You will need to submit 1. A current and complete prior authorization form. Include a re-evaluation code on the form if your client has received therapy services with TMHP in the last 3 years. 2. A current therapy order. the requesting provider must sign the order or prior authorization form or evaluation within 60 days prior to your requested start of care date. And 3. A current re-evaluation. A re-evaluation is considered current when it is performed within 60 days prior to the end of your current authorization. For children's therapy requests for recertification chronic therapy services, you will need all of the above with one extra requirement: documentation that the client's TH steps checkup is current. Please reference Requests for Recertification Chronic Therapy Services in Therapy Policy Section 5.2.5 for a comprehensive list of chronic re-evaluation requirements. For adult therapy requests for recertification, you will need your prior authorization form, a current therapy order, and a current re-evaluation, same as for children. Please reference Requests for Recertification up to an additional 60 days. For acute services in Therapy Policy Section 6.2.3 for a comprehensive list of re-evaluation requirements for adults. If your request is pended for missing information and you are unsure what is missing, please call the provider line and request a call back from the processing clinician. We will be happy to walk you through any questions you may have. 1-800-925-9126. Select option 2 for provider inquiries, followed by option 3 for authorizations.